Hello everyone, this is OpenClinica Bridge training and we're going to get started. This is training for version 3.4 to version 3.7. We are at version 3.8 right now, but there are not a lot of user-facing features in 3.8. But we can certainly review those release notes if you'd like. We're going to review the new features and fixes for versions 3.5 through 3.7, and we're going to do that by reviewing the release notes and documentation. These are available for all of you to access as you need to. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat window and we'll take a look at them at the end of the training session and hopefully get all your questions answered. For version 3.5, which was released in April of this year, we had a few new features. One was to support integration with OpenClinica Participate, which is our ePro module, an add-on module for OpenClinica. And we also had introduced initial partial support for these things called OpenRosa APIs in OpenClinica, and I'll review what all of this means. And we also had a couple of bug fixes that were released. One was fixing a CRF header in data entry, which was specific to locally installed reverse proxy environments, and I'll give you the details about that. And we also disabled the save functionality in case report forms until the entire page rendered. So for supporting integration with OpenClinica Participate, I want to give you a little background about what Participate is. It allows for electronic patient reported outcomes, or ePro, and here's what it looks like. Maybe a patient is at the doctor's office and the doctor happens to be participating in a clinical trial. That doctor can suggest to the patient, Henry here, hey Henry, I've got a clinical trial going on for the condition that you have. Would you like to participate? And if Henry agrees to participate, he will get a text message or a email on his device, whether it's a laptop, a tablet, or his mobile phone. And it will welcome him to the study and provide him with a link to begin participating in that study. When he clicks on that link, he'll be welcomed to the dashboard, and it will show any forms that he's required to complete. And when he clicks on Let's Go, the forms display. He can complete the forms. These forms are developed in OpenClinica, and there's just a checkbox to indicate that it's a Participate form. It is available both in OpenClinica as well as in the Participate module and in the hands of the patient participants. So Henry goes along and fills out his form, and when he's finished, he clicks on the Submit button. And when he clicks Submit, the information is transferred in encrypted mode, and back at the office, at the sponsor site, the data manager can see Henry's data. She'll see it in the OpenClinica form rendering and can review that data and look at that in context of the other data that's collected in this study. Behind the scenes, the audit log is tracking all the participant entries. Even though it says Henry 123 here, the audit log would not have any kind of identifying information for the study subject ID. It would be a unique subject ID that does not give any clue as to who the end user or participant is, but it does track that it was the participant who entered the data. So Participate is a separate application, and it communicates with OpenClinica using APIs, and it uses OpenClinica as the underlying database. The patient data is collected from those mobile devices, but the data is never stored on them. and it is securely sent back to OpenClinica. Any personally identifiable information is stored in encrypted form in the OpenClinica database. So even if users have access to subject casebooks or audit trails, they will see encrypted text in the audit trail for any pages that have PII, and they won't be able to decrypt it. Enterprise customers have access to participate in your test instances. You must request activation, and we will automatically respond by activating it in your test instance. There are additional fees involved if you're going to activate it in a production instance. So I'll ask that you contact our sales department if you'd want to activate it in production. But it's certainly available for you to activate in test, play with it, see how it works, and get used to using it. It's a very powerful tool for collecting patient participant information. To use Participate, there are some additional steps you'll have to do within your OpenClinica study. When you build the study, you'll have to indicate that the form is a Participate form, and I've got links built into these slides so that I'll show you where it is in the documentation. So to activate and build the study, on your Build Study page, you'll notice an additional section called Modules, and Participate is the only one listed at this point. And you'd have to click on the plus sign to enable it. By default, it is disabled. When you click on the plus sign, it's going to prompt you for a subdomain. And this is a part of a web address or URL, and it just needs to be something that's unique and somehow identifies or makes sense to you or your users. For example, we developed a demo study called Juno Diabetes Study, so we had a subdomain of Juno. Once you've provided a unique subdomain, you'd click the Request Access button, and the team at OpenClinica will evaluate that in your test environment. As I said, they'll just grant you access unconditionally. For your production environment, you'll have to chat with our sales team because there are fees involved. I don't have details on what those fees are, but our sales team would be happy to help you with that. Once the study is activated, when you work on your study events, you'll see an extra checkbox for participant form. And you would just, for any form that you design in OpenClinica, you could just check that box, and it is automatically both an OpenClinica form and a participant form. There's additional information that I'll get to later with version 3.7 about anonymous submission in these forms as well. But for now, to activate and use a form, those are the steps you'll need. You'll also need to configure the study for Participate, and I'll just click on that documentation link. There are some differences in the way some of the OpenClinica case report form template works. Sections do not display in Participate forms. It's not really something that people want patient participants to deal with. They'll typically develop the forms as either one question per page or have it as a scrolling screen. Groups do not display in the group header, and group repeat max do not apply to Participate forms. And then on the items tab of the case report form template, the response layout for radio buttons or checkboxes in normal OpenClinica forms, you have the option of making them horizontal or vertical. With Participate, that will not have any effect. Participate automatically adjusts the size of your window to fit whatever device you're using. So for a laptop, the display might be fine to be shown horizontally, but as you look at that form on a cell phone, it will automatically adjust the size and display things vertically. Default value is not supported in Participate forms, and remember, you should not be providing default values for any clinical data, but it is often used for single select drop-down lists. People often put select 1 as the default value. That's not supported in Participate forms. Currently, the data type of real is not supported, so no decimal numbers. And validation is not supported in Participate forms either. You can use rules, and those can be used to perform data validation checks, but the regular validations that are in the simple validations that are in the Excel template don't work for Participate forms. And regular expressions are not supported either. Since there's no validation, the validation error message does not have any functionality as well. And simple conditional display is not supported in Participate forms. You can use the item display status and hide items, but to conditionally show those items, you'd have to write a rule. Otherwise, you can always go in, once you've designed the form and designed it as a Participate form, you'll see an additional icon in your Manage Case Report Forms window, and it looks like a person next to a magnifying glass. And that allows you to view the form as it would appear in Participate. And I've got this example down at the bottom that shows the form in OpenClinica. And when we view it as a participant form, it's showing that simple conditional display can work as long as you do it with a rule, and then the participant form is displayed. The last thing you'll need to do is connect participants so that they can use the participant forms that you built. OpenClinica is used to enroll participants, and they must be enrolled, and OpenClinica is also used to schedule events for those participants. And then a user who has a role of either CRC, Clinical Research Coordinator, or data entry person can connect each participant to OpenClinica using that study URL that was created when you built your study. So either the CRC or data entry person would log into OpenClinica, and from the subject matrix, click on the Connect a Participant link for the patient that you want to connect. And you'll see a login screen, and this is the Participate Connect login. So the CRC or data entry person would log in to Participate. Enter the study subject ID twice to make sure that you're connecting the right participant. It's just sort of doing a double data entry test right there. And you'll then provide some participant information, the participant's first name, their mobile phone number. It has to be a phone number that can receive SMS messages, and or a participant email address. And then click on Connect. For different countries, you can click on the drop-down list for the mobile phone number, and you'll see a selection of countries listed. If the country that you need is not listed, please let us know, and we can add that to our library of phone number validations. Once you click Connect, you'll get a message that says, congratulations. You can either connect another participant or just exit. And when you click Connect, the participant is notified. They'll receive either an SMS or text message that includes a link to access the participant forms. You also have the option of delaying sending that message to the participant. There's a Notify Participant Now button on the Connect Participant screen. The default is yes, we're going to notify them as soon as you click connect, but you can turn that off if you'd rather get all your patients connected and then notify them via other means. When the user or participant clicks on that link, they'll be brought to their dashboard and can fill out the forms that you've scheduled for them. I just want to remind you that the participants' personally identifiable information that's captured, the phone number and or email address, are encrypted. Users who have access to that will see encrypted information. They won't see the actual patient identifiable information. So no worries there. Another feature that was released with version 3.5, it was what we're calling initial or experimental support for these OpenRosa APIs. This is more for folks who are on the development side of things, who might want to contribute things to OpenClinica, sort of the more of the open source contributor developer side of things. And it was an introductory feature. I'm just going to click on the link to the documentation on this, and there's information about OpenRosa APIs. If you're not familiar with them, you can get familiar with them here. We give you links to that. I'm not going to go into detail about the OpenRosa APIs. I do want to point out that these are still experimental. They may not work at all. They're certainly not suitable for production use. We've provided them as a starting point so that people can start getting familiar with them if they're going to be interested in contributing or developing things that work with OpenClinica. So those are available for your review and or testing out, but they are very introductory and experimental at this point. We also had some fixes released in version 3.5, which include displaying the case report form header in data entry. This was specifically an issue for our locally installed customers who set up their network environments as reverse proxy environments, which is not a recommended way of setting up the network environment, but for anyone who did, there was an issue with displaying the case report form header in data entry, so we fixed that. And we also disabled the use of the save button in all case report forms until the entire case report form page was fully rendered. For customers who tended to have local installations where performance might be slow, it might take a long time for a case report form to display, and if they clicked save in the middle of that, it had the potential to cause issues with the data, so we fixed that issue as well. And that was release 3.5. With OpenClinica 3.6, we had additional features and additional fixes, and I'll go over those. The first one was that we added a REST web service call so that you can get all records from a site or study, and I'll show you how you can do that. We also changed the behavior of importing data so that you have control over the status of event case report forms both before and after import, and I'll step you through that process. We also provided email-based authentication for participants, so we can generate an email notification to patients. You've already seen that in my screenshots for 3.5, but it was actually a 3.6 feature. And again, to support communication with participants, we added a new rule action called a notification action, and that supports messaging and variables within messages as part of sending notifications to participants or to a specific email address. And this supports either SMS or email notifications. You can also run rules in batch on a schedule. So we've changed the rules template a little bit to allow you to schedule rules. This comes in especially handy for notification actions, where you can essentially throw a net out and see if anyone has any patient participants have forms that are due tomorrow that haven't been completed yet. And if that is the case, you can send them a notification to remind them to complete their forms. We've added functionality to that notification action rule so that you can use the current date as you can for any rule, but you can also use math with current date. So you can say current date +1, meaning something's due tomorrow. I'll step you through some examples of that. And because of these additional features for running rules in batch on a schedule, we've updated the Manage Rules page to display whether or not you chose the option to run on a schedule, and if so, what time the rule is scheduled to run. So we'll look at these in a little bit more detail. And we also updated a feature which was deleting an event case report form. That clears the form and gets it set up for re-entry now. So the functionality there changed a little bit. We set all of the values to blank. We set all of the logic within the form for required fields, validation, rules. We reset all of those and close out discrepancies and have the form ready for re-entry. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. So the first one was REST web service calls to get all records from a site or study. This is only available in XML or JSON, and it's all related to the print subject casebook. And this is typically done programmatically, but you can also do this within the user interface. Since we're doing this in XML and JSON at the moment, and that can be helpful for sending information to another system. For example, if you have a clinical trial management system. So this is the user interface for printing the subject casebook. And like I said, this is typically done programmatically. I'm just showing you this because it very clearly displays the structure of the URL. And part of the URL for printing any subject casebook is the study subject object ID. And what you can do is just change that study subject object ID to an asterisk, and that would print all subject data. So just a reminder to get to that subject casebook window. From the subject matrix, you click on View. Once you're in the View window, you'd click on the bottom. There's a link for subject casebook. And then you'll just go and change the study subject object ID to an asterisk. And just a reminder, this only works right now with JSON and CDISC ODM XML. It does not work with printable HTML. So locate the study subject object ID, change it to an asterisk. And now it will pull out all study subjects. You also have the option of changing the next asterisk to a specific form object ID. If you wanted to get, for example, all subject data for the adverse events form, you could look up the object ID for the adverse events form and change this second asterisk to that object ID, and it would choose, the result would be all subject data for adverse events. Keep in mind for large studies, because you're extracting all records for all subjects, it may take a long time to get the results. We don't yet have performance metrics on this, but keep the size of your study and the number of subjects you have in mind and please let us know if you have any metrics on the performance of these, and we'll always work toward improving that. One of the other changes, as I mentioned, was updates to the data import template. This is an XML template as well, and we've added some functionality there. The first thing I'm going to mention is that you can now import data based on the current status of that data. We added this upsert on tag, and your choices are not started, data entry started, or data entry complete, and you can set these to either true or false, depending on what you want to import. For example, if you do not want to overwrite data that's already been marked complete, set data entry complete to false. We have also set a form OpenClinica status tag, and you can set the post-import status to either data entry started or complete. This is a linear one-way street. You cannot set something that is in a state of complete back to data entry started. You can only go from data entry started to complete, but it gives you the option to leave it in either of those states. The other feature that I mentioned was we added email-based authentication for participants, and that comes into play when you connect a participant, and it just allows flexibility for contacting and notifying participants of upcoming forms that they need to complete or any other reason for contacting them through notification actions, for example. So you can provide the mobile phone and or the participant email. If you provide both, they will get notified both ways. The new rule action to accommodate notifying participants of upcoming visits or forms is the notification action, and that will send SMS and or email depending on how you connected the patient. And there are variables that you can pass to the notification action, and I'll go over the list of those, but in the two, you can send, you can specify $2 participant, just as it's displayed here, because at a sponsor site, you should not have access to the participant information, the identifiable information. So you can pass that variable, and behind the scenes, OpenClinica will send the notification to the specific participant. It will send it in either SMS or email, as however you connected them. If you can also specify email addresses here. Maybe you want to notify the CRC as well. You could put the CRC's email address in there as well. You would just separate multiple email addresses with a comma. You can also specify a subject, which would be the subject of the notification, just like you put a subject in an email notification, and then the content of the notification. I'm going to step you through the notification action rule by using Rule Designer, just because you can see things more clearly there. But here's the way it works. The target is what triggers the rule. So in this case, I want the initial treatment start date to trigger the rule. You've got the option to run on a schedule, and this is just to make sure that the rule is going to run every night to check for upcoming events. Other rules will run anytime you're doing data entry when you click save, or if you run them in batch, but this allows you to just sort of throw that net out there and say, hey, does anyone have an initial treatment tomorrow? And if they do, let me send them a notification. The time that you specify in the run-on schedule is based on the participant's time zone. OpenClinica captures their time zone every time the participant connects. So if I have a participant in the US, they're based in Boston, and they're in the East Coast time zone, and they go on vacation to Spain. When they arrive in Spain, the first time they connect to OpenClinica, that's when we know their time zone. So if they're in Spain for a week and they don't connect for 4 days, for those first 4 days, we still think they're in Boston. But as soon as they connect to OpenClinica, we capture their time zone and we know where they are, so we can remind them of upcoming visits. If we don't know their time zone, it's going to default to the server time zone. Run on schedule is available for other rule actions, but think about the practical application and performance impact of running all your rules in batch on a schedule. You want to think of this carefully. Your rules are going to run during data entry. They're going to run if you run them in batch. Think about whether you really need to run other rules on a schedule. You certainly want to run them for notification actions on a schedule. Otherwise, you're going to provide a rule object ID just like you do for any rule, and the expression. In this case, my expression is indicating if the initial treatment start date is equal to current date plus 1, which means tomorrow, and the initial treatment status is not complete. So they haven't filled out the forms yet, and those forms are due tomorrow. In that case, I want a notification action. I'll just select that from the list, and then I can build my notification. I've got buttons in here so that I can put these variables into the notification. In my to line, I'm going to send it to the participant. If I wanted to specify additional email addresses, I could just put a comma and then the email addresses that I want to send them to. Each email address should be separated with a comma as well. The subject line provides me with links as well so that I can include the study, the event, the participant, first name, the URL to access OpenClinica Participate, the URL plus the login, which will give them one-step access to it. Otherwise, I would have to provide the URL and the access code for them to connect. In this case, I'm just saying for this, whatever study I'm in, whatever event it is, forms are due tomorrow. And then I build the message. Dear participant first name, it will plug their first name in and whatever the text of the message is. I can plug any of these variables into the message as I need to. The result, if I have 3 different participants who have forms that are due tomorrow, I will get 3 different notifications. These slides will also be available on our website, so you can always refer back to them, but this is covered in the documentation as well. But these are the variables that you can use, description of them, and where you can use them. So based on this notification action setup, what would happen is my 3 different participants would get 3 different notifications. This guy, John, is getting his notification with a link to his forms. Sally is getting a notification with a link to her forms. It's got a different access code. It's just going to Sally's subject data. And Peter over here on his desktop machine is getting a notification with his specific access code. So it's a handy way to dynamically build notifications for any subjects or participants who have forms due. As a result of adding that run on schedule to notification actions, we've had to update the Manage Rules page. So if you go to the task menu and choose rules, you'll see 2 additional columns in that table. Run on schedule, which would indicate either true or false, and if it was true, the runtime would be specified in the second column. We also changed the functionality of deleting event case report forms. If I look at a study subject casebook, if I click on the red X to delete an event case report form, it changes the status back to data entry started. It clears the data from the form. Any notes and discrepancies associated with the cleared data are auto-closed. The status, as I mentioned, is changed back to data entry started, and all changes are tracked in the audit log. In previous versions, the audit log only had one entry that said the event case report form was deleted and indicated who did it and when. Now we track all the individual data values that were deleted. That has raised some eyebrows with some of our users in the EU. They had some concerns that this would be a violation of the right to be forgotten, but that is not the case. The right to be forgotten has some limitations, and that includes any data that's collected for scientific research. And as well, the FDA and ICH have required that any time a subject has consented to participate in a study, even if they withdraw consent at some point, the data that was collected during the time of their consent has to be available for review. For 3.7 release, we added new functionality again to the Participate module so that we allow anonymous submission of participant forms. This allows for broad-reaching survey-based data collection, the types of things you might see in a subway car or something that might say, we're trying to gather some information about diabetes. If there's diabetes in your family, please click this, go to this link and complete our survey. So it's not for specific clinical trials, it's more for let me do a survey and find out whether we need to do some research on this. So to allow for anonymous submission in your Create Event Definitions, you would click on View. You would edit any of the event definitions that you want anonymous submission data collected. And it applies to Participate, so it would have to be a participant form. When you click that option, you'll see a link or another option for allowing anonymous submission. If you click that link, you'll be prompted for a URL. And you'll complete that URL as follows. It must be unique for the study. It cannot contain spaces. You can also provide site-level URLs. Maybe you're doing a survey in the US and also in France and also in Japan. You could have a site-level URL so that you could have US, France, and Japan as different sites. You would just have to edit the event definition for the specific site in order for that to happen. Site-level URLs must be unique within the study. And if you do not specify site-level URLs, then all of the submission defaults to the study URL. The data is entered at the study level in that case. And then you can provide that URL to the general public via advertisements, whether they're posters or in journals or newspapers. People can access the URL, complete the form, and submit their data anonymously. Most typically, a study is either set up as a survey-based study or as a clinical trial. It doesn't make sense to mix and match them, but it allows for great functionality for capturing survey-based data. The other things we've done with Release 3.7 was a bunch of changes and fixes, file uploads in case report forms. There were a number of issues related to those, specifically related to grids, and I'll talk about those. Simple conditional display had some issues, specifically in administrative editing or any edits that you did after the form was marked complete. There was a display fix for the Create New Case Report Form page. That was nothing but a display change. The event date in the source data verification screen, although it had a title of event date, it was instead collecting the event created date. So we fixed that, so it actually is the event date. And we fixed an issue with year of birth not being able to be changed if person ID was not used. So I'll go into more details about that. For uploading files, if you had a grid and a non-repeating group on the same section of a case report form, if the file was uploaded in the non-repeating group, OpenClinica would not save the file. We fixed that. Now it does. During administrative editing, files attached by the site could only be accessed by site users. Files attached by the study level users could only be accessed by study level users. We've fixed that so that if it's attached, either anyone who has access to view that data for that study can see the files that were attached. And the replace and remove buttons did not work consistently in grids, and they do now. This affected versions 3.4 to 3.6, and it was fixed in 3.7. So now uploaded files are saved properly, they're accessible by users with the appropriate roles, and they can be removed and replaced as needed. The other issue that was fixed, simple conditional display didn't work properly when editing values during administrative editing. And again, that's any changes once the form is marked complete. What it was doing was if I specified abnormal and it conditionally displayed the comments, if I cleared the comment out, it didn't make that field hide again. If I changed it back to normal, it would keep it displayed. So now it automatically hides that simple conditional display field. The upload case report form page wasn't displaying properly. The text went outside of the box where it was displayed. This was in versions 3.1.2 through 3.6, and now it looks a lot better. We also changed the wording a bit. Instead of no file selected, it says no file chosen. But it was just a display fix. Didn't affect functionality at all. And the source data verification event date, it was displaying the data entry start date rather than the actual event date. Now it displays the actual event date. This affected versions 3.1.2 to 3.6, and again, it was fixed in version 3.7. Regarding the subject date of birth, in the study parameter configuration screen, there's lots of questions on that page, but the two I'm going to focus on are the collect subject date of birth and person ID required. Prior to version 3.7, if you specified only year of birth and person ID not used, it would not let you edit the year of birth once it was entered. So you now can edit the year of birth once it's entered. Just keep in mind that what it's really doing behind the scenes is it stores the year of birth as a full date. It pre-fills January 1 for the year and month, or I'm sorry, for the date and month for the year entered. So on your extracts and when you're doing your analysis of your data, just be aware that even if you're only collecting year of birth, it's going to show that everyone was born on January 1st. So you'll want to strip out the month and year, month and day. And those are the updates. We've added some great additional functionality for Participate, our ePro module, and even more functionality on top of that with anonymous submission. We also fixed a lot of bugs, and we recommend that you upgrade to get the benefits of both of these features. And I also want to point out that our documentation site also includes all of our release notes and the development roadmap. And you have access to this, and you can always see how we work, how we prioritize things, what changes those priorities, because stuff happens, we might have to change it. And you have access to all of the release notes for every release, as well as our roadmap. And if I click on that roadmap link, you can see what we're working on for future releases of OpenClinica. So we're projecting out to April of next year and even beyond. If you have any questions about any of these releases, or if you'd like to upgrade for our enterprise users, you can submit your questions or upgrade requests to issuetracker.openclinica.com. Our community users, you can submit questions to the forum, which is forums.openclinica.com. Otherwise, if you have any questions now, you can certainly post them to the chat window. I got a thank you from Bob. It's very helpful. Good to hear. And if no one has any questions, then I will close out the meeting and thank you for your attention. I think some of you folks are calling in from China, which it must be very early in the morning right now, so I appreciate your time, and I wish you good sleep for the rest of the night.